Introduction. Marriage felt strange. No. Being married felt strange. The strangeness was what it was doing to me. If someone had foretold that I would spend my wedding day wishing nightfall would arrive faster, I would have laughed in their face. Yet here I was. Waiting. Impatiently. I stood by the window of my study with a glass of water in my hand and looked down into the palace courtyard. The celebration was still in full swing. Drums echoed through the compound. Guests filled the grounds. The feast fires burned brightly beneath the gathering dusk. And right in the middle of it all was Scribbles. A low growl escaped me. What was she still doing outside? Wasn't she supposed to be in her chamber? Resting. Preparing. Doing whatever newly-wedded women were supposed to be doing before their mating night. Instead, she was still entertaining guests. Still smiling. I frowned. She should have been getting ready for me. The possessive thought struck so suddenly that I almost dropped the glass. For me? Goodness, what was wrong with me? My eyes remained fixed on her. Someone stopped her to speak. She listened politely. Another woman pulled her into conversation. Then another. And another. My irritation deepened. Hadn't they taken enough of her time already? The entire day had belonged to them. The wedding. The ceremonies. The blessings. The endless speeches. Everyone wanted a piece of Scribbles. Everyone wanted her attention. And for some reason I found myself resenting it. A dangerous possessiveness stirred inside me. Strong. Unexpected. Unfamiliar. I tightened my grip on the glass. She had spent years barging into my study whenever she pleased. Stealing my food. Stealing my peace. Stealing entire afternoons because she wanted to argue about something ridiculous. She had occupied so much of my life for so long that I had stopped noticing it. Until now. Until today. Until the moment she became my wife. My wife. The word settled strangely in my chest. I had known Scribbles almost my entire life. Known her moods, her habits. Known the look she got right before she decided to do something reckless. Known how to calm her down. Known exactly how to provoke her. Yet somehow this morning she had been Scribbles. Now she wasn't just Scribbles anymore, she's mine. The thought hit harder than it should have. The glass shattered in my hand. Water spilled over my fingers. I barely noticed. My gaze never left the courtyard. Never left her. I had deliberately avoided wine today. I wanted a clear head. I wanted to know I was making every decision in my right mind. Because agreeing to marry Scribbles was still the strangest decision I had ever made. Not because I regretted it. I didn't. That was the troubling part. I should have been questioning it. Instead, all I could think about was why she was still outside. Why she wasn't upstairs. Why she wasn't with me. And why every passing minute felt like a personal offense. Marrying Scribbles had been the strangest decision I had ever made. Why had I even agreed? Was I insane? I couldn't point to a single reason and say, this is why. I wasn't in love with her. At least I knew I wasn't. Moon above, that would be absurd. In love with Scribbles. My best friend. The woman who had spent years barging into my life as if every door in the kingdom belonged to her. Not the woman I was supposed to lose my senses over. Yet here I was. The deed was done. There was no going back. What confused me wasn't the marriage itself. It was this restless anticipation sitting beneath my skin. This ridiculous eagerness. This constant awareness of her. For as long as I could remember, I had never looked at Scribbles as anything beyond Scribbles. Even yesterday. Yesterday she had simply been Scribbles. Today she was still Scribbles. So why did everything feel different? Why did my wolf refuse to settle? Why did every thought somehow circle back to her? I exhaled slowly. Get a grip, Tau. It's probably excitement. Wedding madness perhaps. Too many people shoving advice down my throat. That was all. After tonight everything would settle down. Tomorrow we would wake up. Life would continue. Scribbles would go back to arguing with me. I would go back to pretending her opinions didn't somehow become my problem. Everything would return to normal. I kept telling myself. By nightfall I had resorted to doing the one thing I had promised myself I wouldn't do. I started drinking. Not enough to lose control. Just enough to stop thinking. The first cup disappeared quickly. The second followed. By the third, I was seated behind my desk staring at absolutely nothing. I wasn't forced into this marriage. Nobody manipulated me. Nobody cornered me. I had every opportunity to refuse. That was the problem. I wasn't a man who did things he didn't want to do. Especially not marriage. Marriage wasn't some hunting trip that could be abandoned halfway through. It wasn't a trade agreement or military campaign. It was permanent. So why had I agreed? Marrying Scribbles of all she-wolves in this pack. A faint smile tugged at my mouth. The answer was simple enough. Because she had asked. The thought was so ridiculous that I immediately dismissed it. No. That wasn't true. I was the future Alpha of House Tarian. I didn't make life-changing decisions simply because someone asked nicely. Especially not one as important as this. Besides, Scribbles hadn't tried to charm me. Hadn't tried to seduce me. Hadn't spent months plotting to become my wife. I would wager my entire kingdom that she hadn't thought beyond the proposal itself. Knowing her, she had probably spent more time deciding what boots to wear than considering what marriage would actually mean. A chuckle escaped me. That sounded exactly like Scribbles. Honest to a fault. Terrible at deception. Hopelessly impulsive. She would rather challenge a warrior twice her size than manipulate a man into marriage. No. If there was a fool in this situation, it certainly wasn't her. Which brought me right back to the original problem. Why had I said yes? I leaned back in my chair and stared into my cup. The answer should have been simple. It wasn't. Scribbles wasn't just another woman in my court. Moon above, she wasn't even in the same category. Most men spent years learning about the woman they intended to marry. I had spent a lifetime learning Scribbles. I knew her strengths. Her flaws. Her habits. Her terrible temper. I knew exactly how many breaths she took before losing her patience. I knew when she was pretending to be brave. I knew when she was hurting and trying to hide it. I had been the unfortunate victim of nearly every relationship disaster she had ever experienced. A snort escaped me. The woman had used me as a testing ground for romance for years. I had listened to complaints about foolish suitors. Bad dates. Embarrassing misunderstandings. I had even been kicked in the balls a few times while she vented her frustrations. Entirely by accident. Usually. A smile tugged at my mouth. I knew when she got her first monthly cycle because she had burst into my room convinced she was dying. I knew when she almost had her first kiss. Almost. The memory surfaced unexpectedly. A red-faced young wolf. A garden. An ill-advised attempt at romance. The fool had barely leaned forward before I had planted my fist in his nose. I paused. Then frowned. Damn. Technically that meant I had stolen her first kiss myself. The realization should have bothered me. Instead it made me laugh. At the time it had seemed perfectly reasonable. If somebody was going to kiss Scribbles for the first time, I preferred it be me rather than that idiot. A strange thought. Stranger still was the fact that I had never questioned it. I took another drink. Maybe that was the problem. Nothing involving Scribbles had ever felt strange while it was happening. It only became strange when I looked back at it later. Like the proposal. A grin spread across my face before I could stop it. I should have known something was wrong with her the moment she started pounding on my window at midnight. Not the door. The window. Only Scribbles would ignore an entire palace full of entrances and choose the most inconvenient option available. Even before opening it, I knew who it was. Nobody else would dare. Nobody else would be stubborn enough. The moment I pushed the window open, she practically slapped me in the face with the words, "Tau, will you marry me?" For several seconds I had simply stared at her. Then I checked her eyes. Checked her scent. Checked her pulse. I was convinced she had consumed something. Alcohol. Medicinal herbs. Possibly poison. Anything that could explain what I had just heard. Unfortunately for me, her senses were perfectly clear. Which meant Scribbles had actually proposed. To me. I had dragged her through the window immediately. More out of shock than anything else. Then demanded to know why. The confidence disappeared from her face so fast it was almost impressive. She started stumbling over her words. Fidgeting. Avoiding my eyes. Trying desperately to explain herself. I remembered sitting there and enjoying every second of it. For once she was the uncomfortable one. For once she was the one squirming. Then I surprised both of us. I smiled. And said, "Yes, my lady." The memory still made me laugh. "When would you like the wedding?" I had asked. Today, tomorrow, or now? The look on her face had been priceless. She thought I was joking. She spent nearly 10 minutes trying to figure out whether I was serious. The funniest part was that I didn't know why I was saying yes either. I simply knew I wanted to. And from that moment onward, I had never looked back. Not during the preparations. Not during the ceremonies. Not once. When any sensible man might have reconsidered. When hesitation would have been understandable. I never hesitated. Not even for a second. The realization hit me harder than the wine. Slowly, I rose from my chair. The room suddenly felt too small. My gaze swept toward the bedchamber waiting beyond the adjoining doors. Tonight was tonight. The decision had already been made. The vows had already been spoken. Scribbles was already my wife. There was no going back now.
One painful fact had become impossible to ignore. Tau and I were no longer friends. Even now, 2 years into our marriage, I couldn't explain exactly when it happened. I only knew it had. Somewhere between becoming husband and wife, we had stopped being us. No more early morning rides through the forests surrounding Mooncrawl. No more arguments that lasted half the day, because neither of us knew how to surrender. No more finding him asleep in my father's archives, because he had spent the entire night avoiding council reports. No more hair ruffling, no more shoulder shoves, no more tickling. Moon above, I hated being tickled. Tau knew it, which was exactly why he used to do it. A sad smile touched my lips. I couldn't even remember the last time he had laughed with me. Now there was distance, respect, duty, and intimacy. Strange how intimacy could sometimes feel lonelier than sleeping alone. People spoke of marriage as though it were a grand romance. Secret smiles, lingering touches, stolen glances across crowded rooms. The sort of love songs the bards never seemed to tire of singing. That wasn't us. I didn't know whether Tau loved me. I didn't know what occupied his thoughts. I didn't know what happened behind the doors of his study. I didn't know where he went half the time. And the frightening thing was that he seemed perfectly content keeping it that way. He had shut me out of an entire part of his life. The worst part wasn't the secrecy. It was how gradually it had happened. Sometimes I looked at him and realized I knew less about my husband than I had known about my best friend. That thought terrified me. The only thing I knew with absolute certainty was that he wanted me. There was no confusion there. Tau practically lived in my chambers. His own bedchamber might as well have been abandoned. No matter how late he worked, no matter how exhausted he was, he always came to my room, always slept beside me. Every night. Yet, somehow that certainty only made everything else more confusing. Because wanting someone wasn't the same thing as loving them. I stared out the window of my sitting room. The training grounds were visible from here. Warriors moved through drills beneath the morning sun. Tau was probably already awake. Probably already buried beneath council reports. The thought was automatic. I always knew where to find him. Just not how to reach him anymore. A sigh escaped me. Nearly 2 years. 2 years of marriage, and still no child. The healers assured me there was nothing wrong. The moon priestesses said the goddess worked in her own time. Even my father told me to stop worrying. Easy for them to say. None of them had to endure the whispers. A Luna without an heir attracted attention, especially in a pack as powerful as Mooncrawl. I had tried discussing it with Tau. Twice. The first time he dismissed it. The second time he became annoyed. Stop worrying about it, Scribbles. His voice echoed in my memory. We are healthy. There is nothing to worry about. That had been the end of the conversation, just like it was always the end of the conversation. Not because he was cruel. Tau had never been cruel to me. He simply refused to talk. If something bothered him, he handled it alone. If something threatened him, he handled it alone. Somewhere along the way, he had decided I no longer needed to stand beside him, or perhaps he believed he was protecting me. Tau had always been foolish that way. The result was the same. Silence. A knock sounded at the door. I turned. Come in. One of my attendants entered and bowed. My lady, the morning meal has been prepared. I nodded. Has Tau eaten? The attendant hesitated. The answer alone told me everything. No, my lady. Of course, he hadn't. He was probably working through breakfast again. I rose from my seat and straightened my gown. Some habits refused to die, no matter how distant we became. I still found myself looking for him. Every single morning. The truth was that Tau carried a burden most wolves his age would have collapsed beneath. Officially, Mooncrawl already had an alpha. His grandfather, Alpha Andrew Tarian. For 3 years he had lain unconscious while the entire pack held its breath. And for those 3 years, Tau had stepped into the void. Not officially, never officially. The title still belonged to his grandfather, but the responsibility belonged to Tau. He ran the pack, settled disputes, commanded warriors, negotiated trade, handled rogue incursions, sat through endless council meetings. He carried Mooncrawl on his shoulders and somehow made it look effortless. Not everyone liked that. Some of the older noble families preferred a more traditional arrangement. Others simply disliked taking orders from a younger wolf. Tau knew. He simply didn't care. Respect could be earned. Loyalty could be earned. Fear could be earned. But approval? Tau considered it a useless currency. For 3 years, the arrangement worked. Then grandfather woke up. Looking back now, I can pinpoint that moment as the beginning of everything, the beginning of the cracks, the beginning of the slow unraveling of my marriage. Mooncrawl celebrated for 7 days. The kingdom rejoiced. I rejoiced too, at first. Then grandfather began speaking, and I realized something was wrong, very wrong. His displeasure toward our marriage wasn't subtle. The first time happened during a family supper. I still remembered the uncomfortable silence that followed. Grandfather set down his cup and studied Tau from across the table. "Why did you marry while I was absent?" The room immediately grew quiet. Tau continued eating as though nothing unusual had been asked. I wasn't aware I needed permission. Several nobles shifted uneasily. Grandfather's eyes narrowed. "And if you must marry, why not marry properly?" The words struck me like a slap. My appetite vanished. Across the table, Tau finally looked up. "What exactly does that mean?" Grandfather leaned back in his chair. "It means the future Alpha of Mooncrawl should choose a wife worthy of the position." I felt every eye in the room drift toward me. The silence stretched. Then Grandfather looked directly at me. Not angrily, not cruelly, simply dismissively, as though I were an unfortunate mistake. He turned back to Tau. "I refuse to acknowledge this marriage." My stomach twisted. No one spoke. "There are noble daughters throughout this kingdom, far better suited to stand beside you." Tau's expression remained unreadable. Grandfather continued, "If you are attached to the girl, keep her." The room froze. "Take her as a mistress if you must." I stopped breathing. "But as your wife?" He shook his head. "No." Before anyone else could react, Tau calmly set down his utensils. The soft clink echoed through the dining hall. Every conversation stopped. Every eye turned toward him. He looked at his grandfather, then spoke. "Careful." The single word landed like a threat. Grandfather's brows rose. "Excuse me? You are speaking about my wife." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. I could hear my own heartbeat. Tau's expression never changed. "You may question my leadership." His voice remained calm. "You may question my decisions." His gaze hardened slightly. "You may even question my judgment." The warning beneath the words became unmistakable. "But you will not question her place beside me." Silence. Complete silence. Grandfather stared at him. Tau stared back. Neither man blinked. Neither man looked away. For one frightening moment, I thought they might actually challenge each other right there at the dinner table. Then Grandfather gave a dismissive snort. "You've always been stubborn." Tau pushed back his chair and stood. "And you've always mistaken stubbornness for conviction." Several elders looked horrified. Nobody spoke to Alpha Andrew Tarian that way. Nobody except Tau. He looked down at his grandfather one final time. "My marriage is not open for discussion." The words were neither loud nor emotional. They sounded final, absolute, like a decree. Then he turned toward me. For the briefest moment our eyes met. Something softened in his expression. Only for a second. Then it was gone. "Excuse us." Without waiting for permission, he offered me his hand. My fingers slipped into his automatically. Together we left the hall. Behind us, the silence remained unbroken. Nothing had been resolved, yet everything had changed. The days that followed were worse. The older nobles immediately rallied behind Grandfather. Wolves, who had spent years supporting Tau, suddenly remembered where their original loyalties lay. Council meetings grew tense. Political alliances shifted. The atmosphere inside the palace changed. And for the first time since our wedding, I began feeling something I had never felt before. Unwelcome. Not by Tau. Never by Tau. But by the pack that had once felt like home. Gradually, Grandfather resumed more authority. Gradually, Tau stepped back. Not because he was weak, not because he was losing, but because openly challenging the Alpha would fracture Mooncrawl. So he endured, assisted, compromised, and carried on. The strain began showing anyway. Not in public, never in public, but here. Inside our marriage. Inside the silences. Inside the conversations we never had. The first time grandfather publicly embarrassed me happened 3 weeks after he woke from his coma. I was on the training grounds, which, in hindsight, should have surprised absolutely no one. Most noble women spent their mornings discussing fabrics, marriages, and court gossip. I spent mine trying to put warriors on their backs. The clash of wooden staffs echoed across the arena as I swept my opponent's legs from beneath him. The warrior hit the dirt hard. Cheers erupted around us. I lowered my staff and grinned. Again, the warrior groaned. "Moon, save me from noble." Laughter followed. I was still enjoying my victory when slow applause drifted across the training yard. The entire arena fell silent. Grandfather, Alpha Andrew Tarian, stood at the edge of the training grounds, one hand resting atop an ornate cane. 3 years in a coma had done little to diminish his presence. The old wolf still carried enough authority to silence hundreds with a glance. His eyes settled on me. The applause continued. Impressive. I relaxed slightly. Then he smiled. And immediately I knew I should not have. "You are a far better fighter than you are a wife." The words struck harder than any staff. Around me, several warriors lowered their eyes. Others suddenly became fascinated by the ground. Grandfather descended the viewing platform. "Not your fault, of course." His gaze swept over me. "Tau's spoiled you." I stiffened. "Instead of preparing you for court, he encouraged every reckless habit you ever possessed." A few older nobles chuckled. The sound grated on my nerves. Grandfather gestured toward the staff in my hand, a future lunar training alongside warriors. His tone suggested he found the idea amusing. Most noble daughters spend years mastering diplomacy, etiquette, and court management. His eyes narrowed slightly. "You spent yours learning how to throw grown men into the dirt." Polite laughter followed. Heat crept into my face, not because I was ashamed, because I wasn't. Tau had taught me most of those things himself. How to ride, how to defend myself, how to negotiate, how to read people, how to survive. Those lessons had never felt lacking, until now. Grandfather shook his head. "You would have made an excellent gamma." More laughter. "But a Luna?" He let the question linger, then delivered the true blow. "Tau has many strengths." He paused. Judgment has always depended on the subject. Several nobles exchanged knowing looks. I felt my stomach tighten. This wasn't really about me. It was about Tau, about our marriage, about grandfather's belief that his heir had made a mistake. The old Alpha sighed dramatically. For years I watched Tau prepare himself to lead Mooncrawl. His gaze settled on me again. And then the boy married his childhood friend. A few smiles appeared. Then came the whispers. He married beneath his station. She was only the scribe's daughter. Everyone knows the marriage surprised the court. They grew up together. That doesn't make her suitable. The whispers spread. Quiet, poisonous, impossible to ignore. For the first time in years, I felt self-conscious standing on a training field, as though everyone had suddenly decided to evaluate me and found me lacking. The gossip only worsened in the weeks that followed. Grandfather's criticism never stopped, sometimes direct, sometimes subtle, but always there. Then he began dismantling my place beside Tau, one responsibility at a time. At first, I didn't even realize it was happening. A woman trying for children should not be burdened with unnecessary stresses, grandfather said one morning. The explanation sounded reasonable, thoughtful even. So I obeyed. I stepped away from supply reviews, administrative meetings, several council responsibilities. Gradually, my days became emptier. Gradually, my presence around Tau became less necessary. By the time I realized what was happening, someone else had already begun filling the space I left behind. Her name was Lilith. The first time I saw her, I immediately understood why grandfather approved. She was beautiful, painfully beautiful. The kind of woman people noticed the moment she entered a room. Tall, elegant, perfect posture, perfect smile. Everything about her seemed polished, refined. And worst of all, she was exactly the sort of woman I had spent years helping Tau court before we married. Over the years, there had been enough noble daughters, beautiful visitors, and failed romances for me to recognize the pattern. Tall, slender, graceful, sophisticated, refined. Lilith fit every category. Meanwhile, Isan was simply me. Softer where Lilith was slender, less polished. Blessed with laughing eyes that always seemed moments away from mischief. Far more comfortable on a horse than in a ballroom. Lilith came from one of Mooncrawl's oldest noble bloodlines. The court adored her almost immediately. The noble women embraced her. The elders praised her. The social circles opened their doors to her. And then grandfather began finding reasons to place her near Tau. A report here, a council assignment there, a diplomatic matter, an administrative project, another meeting, another responsibility, another excuse. Soon enough, I began noticing something unsettling. Whenever Tau attended official functions, Lilith seemed to be there. Whenever grandfather required assistance, Lilith was chosen. Whenever important matters arose, Lilith somehow found herself involved. She became increasingly visible, while I became increasingly invisible. The transition happened so gradually, I almost missed it. Almost. Then one afternoon I entered the council wing and watched Lilith hand Tau a stack of reports that should have come through me. For the first time, a cold unease settled in my stomach. I couldn't explain it then, but looking back now, I think that was the moment the real trouble began. Chapter 3. At first, I told myself I was imagining things. Tau and Lilith were working together. That was all. The assignments came from grandfather. The reports came from grandfather. The meetings came from grandfather. There was nothing suspicious about any of it. At least that was what I kept telling myself. Unfortunately, reality became harder to ignore with each passing week. Everywhere I looked, Lilith seemed to be standing beside my husband. Council meetings, diplomatic receptions, charity functions, administrative reviews, even routine inspections. If Tau was present, Lilith somehow found a reason to be present too. The worst part was that neither of them appeared bothered by it. One evening, I finally decided to say something. Tau had just entered my chambers after a particularly long day. I waited until the servants finished laying out supper. Then I dismissed them. The moment we were alone, I spoke. "You spend a lot of time with Lilith." Tau barely looked up from the report in his hand. "Do I?" The casual response irritated me immediately. Yes, he continued reading. No more than necessary. I folded my arms. It doesn't feel that way. That finally earned his attention. Tau lowered the report and looked at me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he sighed. Scribbles. I hated that sigh. It always meant he thought I was being unreasonable. You are imagining problems where none exist. My chest tightened. I am not imagining anything. Grandfather assigns most of those duties. Grandfather isn't the one sitting beside her every day. His eyes narrowed. And what exactly are you accusing me of? I opened my mouth, then closed it again. Because the truth was, I wasn't entirely sure. That uncertainty only made everything worse. The conversation ended badly, like most conversations between us lately. A week later, I brought it up again. This time, Tau's patience snapped. You are being jealous. The accusation stunned me. I am not. You are. His voice hardened. And frankly, I don't appreciate it. I stared at him. You don't appreciate it? No. He tossed another report onto the desk. I have given you no reason to doubt me. I wanted to argue. The problem was that he was technically right. Tau had never flirted with Lilith, never hidden meetings, never behaved improperly. Everything happened openly, which somehow made me feel even more foolish. His expression darkened. What I don't understand is why you suddenly distrust me. The words struck harder than he intended. Because trust wasn't the issue. The issue was fear. Fear that I wasn't enough. Fear that everyone else could see something I couldn't. Fear that grandfather was right, but I couldn't explain any of that. Not even to myself. So instead we argued. And accomplished absolutely nothing. Meanwhile, Lilith continued doing what she did best. Subtle things. Small things. The sort of things impossible to confront. She never openly insulted me. Lilith was too clever for that. Instead, she smiled sweetly and said things like, "Oh, Lady Adaugo would know better than I would," then proceeded to answer the question herself. Or, I suppose I was fortunate to receive proper court training. With that same pleasant smile. Or, I wish I had your confidence. I would never be brave enough to speak so casually before elders. Everyone heard the compliment. I heard the criticism hidden beneath it. And somehow I always looked petty for noticing. The court adored her. The more they admired her, the more aware I became of my own shortcomings. I started noticing every mistake, every awkward moment, every reason I might not belong beside Tau. The loneliness crept in quietly. A little more each day. Until one morning I looked into a mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. Not because she looked different, because she looked uncertain. And I hated uncertainty. Then disaster struck Mooncrawl. A border settlement came under attack. At first, the reports were confusing, then alarming, then catastrophic. The attack spread faster than anyone expected. Warriors were deployed immediately. The palace erupted into chaos. For 3 days, Tau barely slept. For 3 days, the council remained in constant session. For 3 days, Mooncrawl held its breath. Then came the news. Grandfather had been injured. The announcement shook the kingdom. Servants cried openly. Nobles panicked. Rumors spread through every corridor. For a brief moment, I thought Mooncrawl would fracture completely. It didn't, because Tau stepped forward. Just as he always did, just as he had for 3 years before grandfather woke, he took command. organized defenses, directed warriors, secured supply routes, and somehow held everything together. By the time the crisis ended, the pack was still standing. The borders were secure, the enemy had been driven back, and everyone had witnessed exactly who had saved Mooncrawl. Tau Tarian, not the old Alpha, not the council, not the nobles. Tau. For the first time since grandfather's return, the whispers changed direction. Some wolves began remembering why they had followed my husband in the first place. The attack on Mooncrawl should have strengthened Tau's position. Instead, it created a new problem. His name was Julian. I first saw him 3 weeks after the border conflict ended. The entire palace was buzzing before he even arrived. A long-lost grandson of Alpha Andrew, a forgotten branch of House Tarian, a man most people believed would never return. Then he did, and unfortunately, he was impossible to dislike. Julian was handsome in an effortless sort of way, charming without appearing arrogant, confident without appearing threatening. Within days, he knew servants by name. Within weeks, warriors were drinking with him. Within a month, half the kingdom seemed convinced they had known him forever. The man collected affection the way other people collected coins. Even I liked him initially. That should tell you how dangerous he was. The story behind his existence complicated matters further. Years ago, Tau's father, Rawani Tarian, had been married. Legally married. His wife eventually left the palace after years of political conflict and infighting. Julian was born from that marriage. After the separation, Rawani fell in love with Tau's mother. Before he could formally marry her, tragedy struck. Rawani died. Tau's mother returned to her own clan shortly afterward. Tau remained behind. Raised by grandfather, raised inside Mooncrawl, raised as the future leader everyone expected him to become. For years, nobody questioned it. Then Julian returned, and suddenly, people began questioning everything. Legally, his claim wasn't absurd. That was the problem. He wasn't a pretender. He wasn't a fraud. He had Tarian blood. He had lineage. He had supporters. And before long, he had something else. Ambition. He never openly challenged Tau, not at first. Men like Julian rarely attacked directly. Instead, he asked questions. Polite questions. Reasonable questions. Questions that made people think. Questions that spread. Questions that lingered. Until one day the question became unavoidable. Who truly had the stronger claim? For the first time since grandfather woke from his coma, I saw genuine political tension inside the palace, and somehow things only became worse from there. Tau and I had always shared breakfast and dinner together, no matter how busy life became, no matter how many meetings awaited him, no matter how many reports needed reviewing. Breakfast and dinner belonged to us. Or at least, they used to. Gradually, I found myself sitting alone more often. At first, there was always an explanation. Council meetings, border reports, trade negotiations, grandfather, Julian, pack business. It's always something. Then, one morning I realized I had eaten breakfast alone 4 days in a row. A week later, I ate dinner alone twice. Then 3 times. Then more. The absences accumulated quietly. Like everything else, Tau still came to my chambers every night. That part never changed. But something else had. Distance. Even in bed. At first, I couldn't explain it. Then one night, I finally understood. Tau no longer reached for me when he slept. No arm around my waist. No pulling me closer. No waking up tangled together. He would climb into bed, close his eyes, and be asleep within minutes, as though exhaustion had become a permanent state of existence. The change unsettled me more than I cared to admit. I found myself growing tense whenever he entered the room, waiting, wondering, searching for signs that weren't there. Why? The question followed me everywhere. Why was he pulling away? One evening, while helping him remove his ceremonial jacket, I finally asked, "Are you sleeping at all?" Tau looked at me. "A few hours." "A few?" He shrugged. "I've had worse." That wasn't an answer. Unfortunately, it was the only one I received. Then one morning, he surprised me. "I need you to do something for me." I looked up immediately. Requests from Tau had become rare. "What?" "Grandfather." His expression hardened slightly. "The healers say he isn't following instructions." I almost laughed. That sounded exactly like grandfather. Tau continued, "Keep an eye on him." "Me?" "He listens to you more than the healers." That was debatable. Still, I agreed. At the time, I thought he was simply worried about grandfather's recovery. Looking back now, I suspect there was more to it. Pack politics had become increasingly tense. Grandfather was openly comparing Tau and Julian. Not just privately, publicly, constantly. Julian this, Julian that, Julian's diplomacy, Julian's leadership, Julian's noble upbringing, Julian's future noble-born wife. The comparisons never stopped, and every comparison carried the same message. Tau must prove himself worthy. Again, as though he hadn't spent 3 years carrying Mooncrawl on his shoulders. I didn't understand it. Perhaps because I wasn't supposed to. One evening, I finally lost patience. We were alone for once, a rare occurrence. "Tie him." Tau looked up from his report. "What?" "Tie grandfather to a chair if necessary." The corner of his mouth twitched. "Encouraged," I continued. "Do whatever he wants." His expression immediately flattened. My smile faded. "I'm serious. So am I." I set down my cup. "You deserve the Alpha title." His jaw tightened. "Adaugo." "No." For once, I refused to back down. I'm not sitting quietly while somebody appears from nowhere and takes what you've spent years earning. The silence that followed felt uncomfortable. Then, Tau placed the report aside. Very carefully, a warning sign. "Stay out of it." I blinked. "What?" "Stay out of it." His tone hardened. "This doesn't concern you." The words stung. I tried not to show it. "Tai, I'm your wife." "I know." "Then why?" "Because I asked you not to get involved." His voice wasn't angry. That somehow made it worse. Finality lived inside those words. The conversation ended there. Just like so many conversations between us lately. And as I watched him return to his reports, a familiar feeling settled over me. The feeling that my husband was fighting a battle I couldn't see. And worse, one, he had no intention of letting me fight beside him. Chapter 4. The conversation that finally broke me happened on an ordinary afternoon. I think that was the cruelest part. There was no dramatic confrontation, no scandal, no shocking discovery, just Lilith. Smiling, as usual, we were walking through the palace gardens after a charity gathering. Grandfather had insisted we attend together. The event had been exhausting. The sort of gathering where noble women spent hours complimenting one another while secretly competing for influence. Lilith thrived in those environments. I survived them. There was a difference. We walked in silence for several moments before she spoke. The conversation that finally broke me happened on an ordinary afternoon. Looking back, I think that was the cruelest part. There was no dramatic confrontation, no scandal, no shocking discovery. Just Lilith, smiling, as usual. We were walking through the palace gardens after a charity gathering. Grandfather had insisted we attend together. The event had been exhausting. The sort of gathering where noble women spent hours complimenting one another while secretly competing for influence. Lilith thrived in those environments. I survived them. There was a difference. We walked in silence for several moments before she spoke. You know, Tau and I are actually quite well suited. The statement caught me off guard. I glanced at her. She was smiling at the flowers, as though she had commented on the weather. Are you? Her smile widened. Oh yes. Something about her tone immediately put me on edge. I said nothing. Lilith continued. We have always understood one another. A cold feeling settled in my stomach. Always? She finally looked at me and smiled. Long before grandfather brought me to the palace. She emphasized the words. Grandfather brought me to the palace. The meaning landed immediately. She wanted me to understand that she had existed in Tau's life before her arrival here. That this wasn't some recent acquaintance. This was history. Carefully hidden history. I laughed. Or at least I attempted to. Lilith. What? You're fishing? Her smile never faltered. Am I? I shook my head. The conversation should have ended there. Instead, she delivered the killing blow. We were together before you married him. My footsteps stopped. Lilith continued walking another step before pausing. Slowly she turned. The smile remained. We were young. The casualness of her voice unnerved me. Nothing particularly scandalous. I stared at her. You're lying. The response came immediately, without hesitation, without thought. I needed it to be a lie. Lilith merely tilted her head. Am I? Tau would have told me. Her eyes softened, not with kindness, with pity, and somehow that was worse. Would he? The confidence in her voice disturbed me, because liars usually overperformed. Lilith didn't. She sounded certain, comfortably certain. She stepped closer. Find out. Then she walked away, leaving me standing alone in the garden. Find out. The words haunted me. Of course she was lying. She had to be. Tau never hid things from me. Not before. I knew everything. Or at least I used to. I knew every foolish girl he dated. Every failed romance. Every embarrassing mistake. Half the time, I had been the unfortunate soul, forced to listen to his complaints afterward. There was no way he could have hidden an entire relationship from me. No way. And yet, the certainty wouldn't come. That night, I decided not to ask him. The next morning, I changed my mind. That afternoon, I changed it again. For 3 days, I argued with myself. 3 miserable days. Then, on the 4th night, I waited for him. The palace had gone quiet. The candles had burned low. Midnight approached. Still, I waited. Eventually, the door opened. Tau entered. Exhaustion lined his features. He looked older lately, warier. He loosened the collar of his shirt, then paused. You are awake, I swallowed, suddenly uncertain, suddenly afraid. Tau! Something in my voice made him stop completely. His attention sharpened. What happened? I stared at him, then finally asked, "Were you and Lilith together before we married?" The silence that followed lasted only seconds. It felt like years. Tau went still. Completely still. My heart sank. Because I knew him. I knew every expression he possessed. And that silence told me everything before he even spoke. He looked away, just briefly. But long enough. Long enough. When he finally answered, his voice was quiet. It was in the past? The room seemed to tilt. I don't remember what happened afterward. Not clearly. Only fragments. Tau speaking. Me nodding. The conversation ending. The candles burning lower. Then darkness. For the first time in my marriage, I cried. Not loudly. Not dramatically. I simply lay beside my husband and cried silently into my pillow while he slept. Or pretended to. I wasn't sure which hurt more. By morning, a terrible realization had settled inside me. Grandfather approved of Lilith. The court approved of Lilith. She was beautiful, elegant, refined, noble-born. Exactly the kind of woman everyone expected to stand beside a future alpha. Exactly the kind of woman Tau had always dated. And me, I was Scribbles, his childhood friend. The girl who followed him around. The girl he had grown fond of. The girl he had married, not because he loved her, because he liked her. The difference suddenly felt enormous. Worse still, I had nothing to hold on to. No powerful family, no political influence, no noble bloodline, no heir. Nearly 2 years of marriage, and still no child. As I stared at the dawn filtering through the curtains, one thought repeated itself over and over again. If Tau ever decided he wanted something more than friendship, I wasn't sure I could compete with Lilith. My father had been Mooncrawl's principal scribe. That was how all of this started. He taught Tau. I followed my father everywhere. Tau tolerated me, then befriended me, then somehow became the center of my world. Now I couldn't look at him without feeling my heart crack. The sickness arrived gradually. I stopped eating properly, stopped sleeping properly. The healers blamed exhaustion. I blamed myself, or Lilith, or grandfather, or Tau, depending on the hour. I refused every healer sent to my chambers. I refused medicines, refused tonics, refused advice. Mostly, I refused people. After several days of this, Tau finally lost patience. He arrived unexpectedly one evening, dismissed the servants, walked straight to my bed, then sat down beside me. I stared blankly out the window. He grabbed my shoulders and sat me upright. "What do you want?" I blinked. "What? What do you want, Scribbles?" His frustration was obvious. His jaw was tight. His eyes exhausted. I simply looked at him. The emptiness inside me felt too large to explain. Tau ran a hand through his hair, then stood, paced, turned. "What is your problem?" Something snapped inside me. Months of pain. Months of loneliness, months of doubt, all at once. "My problem?" I laughed bitterly. "My problem?" Tau stiffened. "Yes." I pointed directly at him. "You are my problem." The room went silent. For one brief second, neither of us moved. Then Tau slammed his fist into the wall. The crack echoed through the chamber. I jumped. He hit it again and again. The door burst open. Several servants rushed inside. "Your highest. Out!" The roar shook the room. Everyone froze, then fled. Tau crossed the room, locked the door, turned around, and for the first time in months, I didn't see Alpha Tau Tarian. I saw my best friend, the boy who used to drag me into arguments, the boy who refused to let problems rot, the boy who believed every fight should be fought immediately. His eyes blazed. Enough! The word cracked through the room. Today we are settling this. I stared at him, almost shocked. Where had this version of him been? The anger finally exploded out of me. "You don't get to do this," I screamed. "You don't get to disappear for months and suddenly remember I exist." He didn't interrupt. I grabbed the nearest vase and hurled it across the room. It shattered. "You don't get to decide when we talk." Another object followed, and another. Years of frustration poured out. Lilith, grandfather, the silence, the loneliness, the distance, every wound, every fear, every insecurity, I threw them all at him. Tau never moved, never defended himself, never interrupted. He simply stood there, listening, watching, taking every blow. When I finally ran out of anger, I collapsed onto the edge of the bed, breathing hard. The room looked like a battlefield. Tau crossed the distance between us. Slowly, carefully, as though approaching a wounded animal. Then he crouched in front of me. His voice was rough. "Scribbles." I didn't look at him. Scribbles. I hated how broken he sounded. He took my hands, for the first time in months, and held them tightly. "You are hurting me." I froze. The words were so unexpected that I finally looked up. Tau swallowed. His eyes looked suspiciously bright. "You've been shutting me out for months." I stared at him, unable to speak. His grip tightened. "I feel like I'm failing you." The confession stunned me. Tau looked away briefly, then back at me. "I can fail at becoming Alpha." His voice was low. "I can lose every title grandfather wants me to fight for." He shook his head. "But I can't fail as your husband." My breath caught. "I can't." Scribbles, the pain in his voice sounded real, dangerously real. "If I've done something wrong, tell me." I couldn't speak. "Hit me if you need to." His expression was desperate now. "Yell at me. Throw another vase. I don't care." He squeezed my hands. "But stop shutting me out." The room felt very quiet, very still. For the first time in months, I wanted to deceive him. I opened my mouth, ready to tell him everything. Lilith, the lies, the fear, the jealousy, the loneliness. Then the room suddenly tilted. My stomach lurched violently. Tau frowned. "Scribbles?" I barely had time to react. I vomited all over him. The silence that followed was magnificent. Tau stared down at his ruined shirt. I stared at his ruined shirt. For one brief second, neither of us moved. Then the room spun. Darkness rushed toward me. The last thing I heard before collapsing was Tau shouting my name. Chapter 5, I woke to voices. Low, urgent, too many voices. For a moment, I thought I was still dreaming. My head felt heavy, my mouth dry, and every muscle in my body seemed reluctant to move. When I finally forced my eyes open, I found healers and servants moving around my chambers with frantic purpose. Bowls of herbs, fresh linens, medicine. Whispered instructions. The room smelled of lavender and worry. But Tau was nowhere to be seen. I tried to sit up. A healer immediately pressed a hand to my shoulder. "Careful, my lady." "Where is Tau?" No one answered. The silence was so immediate, so deliberate, that unease curled through my chest. "Where is my husband?" I repeated. Before the healer could invent a response, Grandfather entered the room. He looked perfectly composed, too composed. Tau had to inspect the outer lands, he said. There were reports requiring his attention. I frowned. He left? Pack business does not stop because one woman collapses. The words stung, but I ignored the sting. When will he return? Soon. Grandfather offered the answer smoothly. Too smoothly. Then he changed the subject. You should focus on recovering. I did recover. Slowly. Each day the dizziness eased. The nausea lessened. The healers fussed over me constantly, refusing to let me lift so much as a cup. But Tau did not return. One day became 3. 3 became a week. A week became 2. No message, no letter, no explanation. Every morning, I asked if he had returned. Every morning, I was told no. By the 12th day, worry had hardened into something uglier. Had he truly left so soon after learning I was pregnant? Had he known? Had he cared? The questions exhausted me. On the 14th day, Grandfather came to my chambers alone. No servants, no healers, just him. He settled into a chair beside the window and studied me for a long moment. You are looking stronger. I am trying, he nodded once. Good. Then we can speak plainly. A chill slid down my spine. Grandfather rarely said anything without purpose. He folded his hands over the head of his cane. I have decided to name Tau as my successor. For a heartbeat, relief flooded me. That is wonderful. I smiled despite myself. He has earned it. Grandfather's expression did not soften. There is a condition. The smile faded. What condition? You leave. The room went silent. I stared at him, certain I had misheard. I beg your pardon? You walk away from the marriage. Quietly, without scandal, without resistance. My pulse began hammering. Why would I do that? Grandfather's voice remained calm. Because you are a burden to him. The words hit harder than any insult he had thrown before. You know that, don't you? He continued. Tau cannot become the Alpha Mooncrawl needs. While tied to a wife, the court refuses to respect. I forced myself to sit straighter. Tau chose me. Tau chose his childhood friend, Grandfather corrected. That is not the same thing. He leaned forward slightly. Had I known that closeness would become marriage, I would never have allowed it to continue. The statement hurt more than I expected. Not because I valued Grandfather's approval, because I suddenly understood how long he had been opposing us. And my child? I asked quietly. Grandfather's gaze flickered to my stomach. You need not concern yourself with that. Not concern myself with my own child. Something cold entered his expression. The heir of House Tarian will be provided for. Here, not child, not baby. Here. The distinction terrified me. I pressed a hand protectively over my stomach. Grandfather noticed. Think carefully, Adaugo. Tau will never say these things himself. He is sentimental where you are concerned. He rose slowly from the chair. But sentiment is not leadership. At the door, he paused. One more thing. I looked up. Before Tau left, he instructed the healers to take excellent care of you. Then he walked out. I sat motionless long after the door closed. Take excellent care of you. The words echoed in my head. Why say that unless he knew I was pregnant? And if he knew, why had he left? Why had he been gone for 2 weeks without a single message? Why did every answer I received feel rehearsed? Slowly, unease gave way to something sharper. Suspicion. I looked toward the closed door through which grandfather had just disappeared. For the first time since this nightmare began, a terrible thought took shape in my mind. Something was wrong. Not with my marriage, not with my pregnancy, with the story I was being told. And if that story was a lie, then Tau might not be staying away by choice at all. For 3 days, I thought about grandfather's offer. 3 days of sleepless nights, 3 days of staring at walls, 3 days of asking myself the same impossible question. If walking away would give Tau the future he deserved, did I have the right to stay? The answer never became easier. On the 4th day, I agreed. Not because I stopped loving my husband, because I loved him too much. If grandfather was telling the truth, if I truly was the obstacle standing between Tau and the Alpha title, then I would remove myself. Tau deserved better than being forced to choose. The decision broke something inside me, but once it was made, I moved quickly. I packed little, took only what I needed. Left before dawn, no farewells, no dramatic goodbyes, no letters. The palace no longer felt safe. Not after everything that had happened. Not after the lies. Not after the pressure. Not after realizing I no longer knew who to trust. The only thing I knew was that something about Tau's disappearance felt wrong. Very wrong. The further I traveled from Mooncrawl, the stronger the feeling became. None of it made sense. Tau had known I was pregnant. Grandfather admitted as much. The healers confirmed it. Before leaving, Tau had personally instructed them to care for me. That wasn't the behavior of a man abandoning his wife. So why hadn't he returned? Why hadn't he sent word? Why hadn't he come home? The questions haunted every mile of the journey. Then I found the first clue. A wounded warrior, one of Tau's men. At first he refused to speak. Then he saw the House Tarian ring on my hand. Everything changed. The warrior looked horrified. "My lady." His voice cracked. "What happened to Tau?" The man's face drained of color, and suddenly I knew. Something terrible had happened. He was betrayed. The words hit like a physical blow. The warrior lowered his gaze. The mission wasn't real. My heart stopped. What? It was a setup. The world seemed to tilt. The warrior swallowed hard. There was never supposed to be a mission. Every instinct inside me screamed. I knew it. Moon above. I knew it. Where is he? The warrior hesitated. Too long. Far too long. Where is my husband? I almost shouted it. The warrior finally whispered a location. Then added the part that stole the air from my lungs. The men left him there. Silence. I stared at him, certain I had heard wrong. They what? The warrior looked ashamed. They were ordered to. For several seconds, I couldn't breathe. Tau Tarian. The man who had led Mooncrawl for years. The man warriors would have followed into battle without question. The man who had saved the pack more times than anyone could count. Abandoned, left behind. Like an unwanted burden, I felt sick. No, not sick. Terrified. Because suddenly everything made sense. Grandfather's pressure, Julian's arrival, Tau's disappearance. The convenient timing, the silence, the lies. This had never been a pack mission. It was a suicide mission. Someone had sent my husband there to die. And if Tau was still alive, then every minute mattered. I turned my horse immediately. The warrior called after me. "My lady, where are you going?" I didn't slow down. Didn't stop. Didn't even look back. There was only one answer: to find my husband, before whoever wanted him dead finished the job. I found Tau 3 days later. 3 days of riding through unforgiving wilderness. 3 days of questioning every trail, every rumor, every broken branch, every bloodstain. The location alone told me something was wrong. No sane commander would have chosen it. The place sat beyond Mooncrawl's eastern borders, where the forests thinned into rocky highlands and abandoned hunting grounds. The terrain was brutal: steep ravines, jagged stone, sparse game, little fresh water, the kind of place warriors avoided whenever possible, and certainly not a place an injured man could survive for long. By the second day, dread had become my constant companion. By the third, I was certain I was too late. Then I found blood. Not fresh. Old. Several days old. My pulse quickened. I followed it, further into the rocks, further away from civilization, further into silence. Then I found him. For a moment, I didn't recognize him. The man lying among the stones looked nothing like Alpha Tau Tarian. Nothing like the wolf who commanded armies. Nothing like my husband. He looked dead. My heart stopped. The world narrowed. Everything disappeared except him. Tau. The word barely left my mouth. No response. I slid from my horse so fast I nearly fell. My knees hit the ground beside him. Tai. Nothing. His skin was cold, too cold. His breathing was shallow, so shallow I almost missed it. Blood covered him. Dried blood. Fresh blood. Blood everywhere. One shoulder had been torn open. Several deep cuts crossed his chest. His leg looked broken. The wound along his side had become infected. Moon above, how long had he been lying here? I pressed trembling fingers against his throat. A pulse. Weak. But there, relief hit so hard it hurt. If I had arrived 1 day later. No, I couldn't think about that. I wouldn't. Not now. My hand instinctively moved to my stomach. Our child. Then back to Tau. For one terrifying moment, I felt pulled in 2 directions. Mother. Wife. Protect the baby. Save my husband. The decision lasted less than a second. I was doing both. Somehow. I didn't have the luxury of choosing. The next several hours passed in a blur. I dragged him into shelter. Not a proper shelter. Just a narrow overhang between 2 massive stone formations. Enough to protect him from the wind. Enough to buy time. I cleaned his wounds, removed damaged bandages, stopped bleeding wherever I could, boiled water, applied herbs, prayed, then prayed again. The entire time my mind kept asking the same question. How? How had this happened? Tau wasn't careless. He wasn't inexperienced. He wasn't foolish. To leave him in this condition required betrayal. Nothing else made sense. An ambush, a setup, a trap. The realization sickened me. Someone had wanted him dead. The more I thought about it, the worse it became. Who had sent him? Who had abandoned him? Who had ordered warriors to leave the future Alpha of Mooncrawl to die alone? Grandfather? Julian? Someone else? The problem was that I didn't know, and until I knew, I trusted no one. Not the palace, not the council, not the warriors, not even the men who claimed loyalty to House Tarian. Anyone could be involved, anyone. So I stayed, and I waited, and I nursed my husband back from death. The weeks that followed were the hardest of my life. The shelter became home. The wilderness became our prison. Every day was survival. Food, water, medicine, firewood, repeat, then do it again. The environment showed no mercy. Cold nights, relentless winds, heavy rains, predators, isolation. Some days, I thought the land itself wanted us gone. Tau spent most of the first 2 weeks unconscious. When he woke, it wasn't much better. Fever consumed him. Confusion followed. Sometimes he knew who I was. Sometimes he didn't. Twice he tried to stand. Twice he collapsed. More than once I caught him reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. Fighting enemies only he could see. The blood loss had been catastrophic. Even after the fever broke, recovery came painfully slowly. I fed him, forced him to drink, changed bandages, supported his weight, ignored my own exhaustion, ignored my own fears, ignored the life growing inside me every time nausea threatened to overwhelm me. There was simply too much to do, too much at stake. A month passed before Tau managed to stand unaided. A full month. I remember the moment clearly. He rose from the bedroll, took one shaky step, then another. The effort left him breathing hard, but he remained standing. I nearly cried, not because he stood, because for the first time since finding him among those rocks, I truly believed he might live. Tau looked thinner, older. The ordeal had carved away some of his strength. But the fire remained. The stubbornness remained. The man remained. And as I watched him standing there beneath the morning light, one thing became clear. Someone had tried very hard to kill Tau Tarian, my husband. They had failed. The next time they came for him, they would find both of us waiting. By the second month, Tau was finally strong enough to travel. At least, that was what I believed. Tau disagreed. So did every healer we encountered. And unfortunately, they were all talking about me. The nearest settlement sat several hours from the rocky wilderness where I had found him. A small outer lands village tucked between rolling hills and farmland. Simple, quiet, far from Mooncrawl politics, far from grandfather, far from Julian, far from anyone who might want Tau dead. When Tau was finally capable of walking without nearly collapsing, he announced that we were leaving the wilderness. I argued. Naturally. We're managing. No. We've survived this long. No. Tai? No. I glared at him. He glared back. The fact that he was healthy enough to argue almost made me happy. Almost. Then he crossed his arms. You are pregnant. I am aware. You are exhausted. I am aware. You have been caring for 2 people for months. I am also aware of that. His expression remained infuriatingly unmoved. We're leaving. The discussion ended there. Some things never changed. The settlement welcomes up without question. Outer land communities rarely concerned themselves with politics. People survived by minding their own business. We rented a small cottage near the edge of the village. Nothing impressive. 2 rooms. A kitchen, a small garden, a stable. For the first time in years, life became simple, and strangely, I liked it. Tau continued recovering. His wounds closed. His strength slowly returned. He could move around freely now, ride short distances, help with small tasks. But strenuous activity remained impossible. His body simply wasn't ready. The months of recovery had taken a heavy toll. At the same time, my own condition changed. The baby grew, so did my stomach. Travel became increasingly difficult, then dangerous, then impossible. One afternoon, after consulting Sahila, Tau made the decision. We're staying. I already knew what he meant. Until the baby arrived, there would be no return to Mooncrawl. No long journeys, no dangerous roads, no risks. I expected to argue. Instead, I found myself relieved. For the first time since our marriage began, nobody wanted anything from us. No council meetings, no noble expectations, no politics, no Lilith, no grandfather, no succession disputes, just us. The simplicity gave us something we hadn't possessed in years: time. And somehow, somewhere between tending gardens and arguing over firewood, my husband returned. Not Alpha Tau Tarian, not the future ruler of Mooncrawl, Tau, my best friend. The boy my father had taught. The boy who used to sneak into the archives because he hated lessons. The boy who spent half his childhood dragging me into trouble. The boy who called me Scribbles. He returned gradually. A joke here, a smile there, a stolen pastry, a teasing comment. Small things, important things. One evening I realized I had laughed more in a single week than I had during the previous year. The realization startled me. It seemed to startle Tau too. He watched me differently now, closer, softer. His attention lingered. His smiles lasted longer. The distance between us slowly disappeared. Not all at once. Neither of us trusted happiness that easily, especially me. I accepted his attention cautiously, carefully, the way one approaches a wounded animal. Part of me remained afraid that the moment I fully believed in him, something would happen. Afraid that my heart would not survive breaking a second time. So I kept parts of myself guarded, even when he sat beside me, even when he held my hand, even when he looked at me as though I was the only person in the world. Tau noticed. Of course he noticed. Tau noticed everything about me, but he never pressured me, never demanded explanations, never pushed. Instead, he remained patient. Steadily, quietly, infuriatingly patient. If I pulled away, he let me. If I grew silent, he sat beside me anyway. If fear made me hesitate, he simply waited. Some nights we talked until midnight. Some nights we said almost nothing. Both seemed equally important. One evening, I fell asleep reading. When I woke, I found myself tucked beneath a blanket. The book had been removed from my lap. A lantern had been lowered, and Tau sat nearby pretending to read his own report. Pretending. Because the page hadn't changed in 20 minutes. I smiled despite myself. His eyes lifted immediately. There she is. The simple words warmed something inside me. A dangerous warmth. The sort that encouraged hope. The sort I had spent months trying to suppress. The sort that whispered, maybe this could still work. Maybe we weren't broken. Maybe we never had been. Outside, the sun was setting beyond the hills. Inside, our child kicked for the first time. Tau froze. I froze. Then his eyes widened. Scribbles. I laughed. For the first time in a very long time, neither of us thought about Mooncrawl. Neither of us thought about politics. Neither of us thought about enemies. For one perfect moment, there was only a husband, a wife, and the tiny life growing between them. Everything else could wait. Chapter 6. Our daughter was a month old when Tau shattered my peace. The morning had begun perfectly. The baby had finally fallen asleep. I was sitting outside our cottage, enjoying the rare silence, while Tau repaired a fence that didn't actually need repairing. He had developed an unfortunate habit of finding work whenever he wanted to think, which meant he was thinking a lot. I should have known trouble was coming. Scribbles. I didn't even look up. It's time. My stomach tightened immediately. There were only a handful of things that could make Tau sound that serious. I already knew I wasn't going to like any of them. He set the hammer aside. We need to go back. There it was, Mooncrawl. The single word he didn't have to say, the peaceful morning instantly soured. My gaze dropped to our daughter sleeping in my arms. No, Tau sighed. Not because he was angry. Because he had expected that answer. Scribbles. No. I stood, more sharply than intended. The baby stirred. I immediately softened. Tau watched me carefully. The people responsible are still there. His voice remained calm. Someone tried to kill me. I know. I need answers. I know. I need to know who did it. The frustration building inside me finally escaped. Why? Tau blinked. Why? Because they tried to kill me. I laughed. Not pleasantly. You almost died. His jaw tightened. I continued anyway. You nearly bled to death. You couldn't even stand. His expression darkened. Adaugo. No. I pointed directly at him. Grandfather can have the pack. His eyebrows rose. Julian can have the throne. Another blink. Lilith can have whatever she wants. That got his attention. A dangerous stillness entered his expression. Lilith? The name tasted bitter. I hated that. Even now. Even after everything. I hated that. My anger suddenly found a target. Maybe that's what this is really about. His eyes narrowed. What does that mean? I laughed again. This time, more painfully. Oh, please. The words burst out before I could stop them. You want to go back? Yes. Immediately. Yes. Despite everything. Yes. The realization hit me like a punch. Of course he wanted to return. Lilith was there, moon above. I had been such a fool. Months of sacrifice. Months of nursing him. Months of rebuilding us. And somehow I still wasn't enough. The tears embarrassed me. The anger embarrassed me more. Maybe you miss her? The silence that followed was immediate. Absolute. Tau stared at me. I stared right back. His expression shifted. Confusion first. Then disbelief. Then something very close to outrage. You're talking about Lilith. I folded my arms. What gave it away? For several seconds he simply stared. Then he dragged a hand down his face. Slowly. As though praying for patience. A terrible sign. Scribbles. There it is. The words exploded out of me. His head snapped up. There, what is Scribbles? I almost shouted it. Scribbles, Scribbles, Scribbles. The baby startled. Tau immediately looked horrified. I didn't care. You call me Scribbles every 5 minutes. His expression became completely bewildered. What? I am tired of being Scribbles. The words stunned both of us, because I hadn't known they were waiting inside me either. The silence stretched. Then everything came pouring out. I am your wife. My voice cracked. The mother of your child. I felt tears gathering. I am not that little girl anymore. Tau remained motionless. For once saying absolutely nothing, I pointed toward myself. I carried your child. Another tear escaped. I almost lost you. Another. I left everything for you. My chest hurt. And sometimes I feel like you still see me as nothing more than your childhood friend. The confession left me feeling exposed. raw, vulnerable. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then Tau crossed the distance between us, slowly, very slowly. As though approaching something precious, he stopped directly in front of me, then cupped my face. Look at me. I didn't want to. Unfortunately, I always obeyed that tone. My eyes lifted. The expression on his face stole the air from my lungs, because I had never seen him look at anyone that way. Not once. Not ever. Do you really believe I crossed half a kingdom, fought death, survived betrayal, and built a life out here because of Lilith? I couldn't answer. The question sounded ridiculous when he said it. Tau shook his head. Moon above. He actually laughed. Not mockingly, disbelievingly. Then he leaned his forehead against mine. Scribbles. I groaned. He ignored me. I never loved Lilith. The certainty in his voice startled me. Not once. I wanted to believe him. I truly did. The problem was that believing him hurt. Then, what was she? Tau sighed. A mistake. My eyebrows rose. A mistake? A drunken night. The answer came immediately. No romance, no secret relationship, no grand love story. Nothing. I stared, Tau continued. It happened once. His expression darkened. I regretted it immediately, and never touched her again. I searched his face, looking for deception. Finding none, even after she came back? Especially after she came back. His jaw tightened. She spent months trying to trap me. Grandfather helped. My eyes widened. Tau laughed humorlessly. You think I didn't notice? The realization shook me. Then another thought arrived. You hid it from me. The guilt on his face was immediate. Finally. Something. Tau looked away. For the first time since the conversation began. I know. His voice was low, apologetic. You should have told me. I know. This last time, the words were softer. He was not dismissing me. He was admitting it. Why didn't you? He sighed. At first, I didn't think I owed anyone an explanation. That sounded exactly like him. Then, his expression softened. Then, grandfather brought her closer. My stomach tightened. Tau's gaze hardened, not at me, but at the memory. He kept creating reasons for her to be near me. Reports, meetings, council assignments, court matters. Every time I turned around, she was there. I said nothing, he continued, and I knew what he was doing. What was he doing? Testing me. His jaw flexed, tempting me. The words settled coldly between us, trying to prove that my marriage to you was sentiment and nothing more. My throat tightened. Tau's thumb brushed my cheek. I should have told you then. Yes, I know. This time his answer nearly broke me. Because he meant it. I thought if I kept you away from all of it, I was protecting you. I stared at him. From what? Grandfather's cruelty, Julian's ambition, Lilith's games, the council's contempt, the nobles whispering that you were beneath me. His voice roughened. I heard more than you think I did. My chest squeezed painfully. Then why didn't you say anything? Because I thought silence would shield you. His laugh was bitter. Foolish, isn't it? I couldn't answer. Tau looked at me with open regret. I thought if I carried it alone, it would stay away from you. His eyes searched mine. But instead, I pushed you away. I made you feel unwanted. I made you think I was hiding my life because you didn't belong inside it. The truth of that landed hard, painfully hard. You did. I know. The apology in his voice was unmistakable, and I am sorry. Silence settled between us. Then, another memory rose like poison. Grandfather told me to leave you. Tau went completely still. The air shifted, dangerously. What? I swallowed. When you were gone, after I found out I was pregnant. His hands dropped from my face. For one terrifying second, he looked nothing like my husband. He looked like the Alpha who had survived death. He came to my chambers, I said quietly. He told me he would name you his successor if I walked away. Tau's eyes darkened. He said you would never say it yourself, because you were sentimental where I was concerned. His silence was terrible. I continued. He told me I was a burden to you. Tau turned away sharply, his hand curled into a fist. I saw the struggle in him, the wolf, the rage, the restraint. He said if I left, you could still become the Alpha Mooncrawl needed. Tau's voice, when it came, was deadly quiet. And you believed him? I flinched. Not because he shouted, because he sounded hurt. I didn't want to. But you did. I was pregnant. You were gone. No messages, no word. Everyone kept telling me you had left for pack business. My voice shook. And then he told me you knew I was pregnant before you left. Tau turned back to me. The anger vanished. Horror replaced it. I did not leave you. I know that now. No. He stepped closer. Scribbles, listen to me. I did not leave you. His voice broke slightly on the words. I was sent to die. The final piece slid into place. Grandfather's offer, Tau's disappearance, Julian's arrival, Lilith's confidence, the pressure, the silence, the lies. It had not been one wound. It had been a net, and we had both been caught inside it. Tau's face was grim. Grandfather wanted you gone. The words were not a question. He wanted me free. No. Tau's answer came instantly. He wanted me isolated. I looked up. His eyes were hard. You were never my weakness, Scribbles. His voice dropped. You were the one thing they couldn't control. I stopped breathing. Tau continued. That was why they wanted you out. The world seemed to tilt around me. All those months I had believed I was the mistake. The burden, the wrong wife, the obstacle standing between Tau and his throne. But maybe Grandfather had not wanted me gone, because I weakened Tau. Maybe he wanted me gone, because I gave Tau something to fight for. Something that did not belong to the council. Something they could not command. The realization made me feel both furious and foolish. Tau saw it. His expression softened. He used your love for me against you. My eyes burned, and he used your silence against me. Tau closed his eyes briefly. I know. There it was again. Not defensive, not impatient, not dismissive. Just regret. Pure regret. I kept waiting for a better time to tell you everything, he admitted. But every day the politics became worse. Every day I thought I could fix one more thing before dragging you into it. His voice lowered. And every day I lost you a little more. Silence settled heavily between us. Then I asked the question that mattered most. You still never wanted to marry me. The old wound returned immediately, painfully. I asked you. Tau stared at me, then laughed. Not mockingly, not cruelly, pure disbelief. Moon above. The man actually laughed. What? I demanded. He shook his head. Scribbles. There you go again. No, he stepped closer. You really don't know. His expression softened, almost unbearably so. You think I didn't want to marry you. Didn't I force your hand? The words escaped before I could stop them. You never asked me. You never courted me. You never pursued me. My voice cracked. I was the one who climbed through your window. A smile tugged at his mouth. I pointed at him. Don't smile. The smile grew. You looked at every elegant woman in the kingdom, I continued. Every noble daughter. Every graceful court beauty. Women like Lilith. Tau rolled his eyes. Unfortunately, I wasn't finished. They were beautiful. They were sophisticated. They knew how to behave at court. I looked down at myself. I was never like them. His expression hardened immediately. Scribbles. No. Years of insecurity came rushing out. I know what I am. I was the scribe's daughter. I tracked mud through palace corridors. I preferred horses to banquets. I never learned how to glide into a room. My laugh became shaky. I wasn't elegant. I wasn't glamorous. I certainly wasn't the type of woman men write songs about. Tau stared at me for several seconds, then rubbed both hands over his face, as though searching for strength. When he finally spoke, his voice sounded rough. You have absolutely no idea what I saw when I looked at you. The certainty in his tone stole my breath. Tau stepped closer. You think Lilith was my type, wasn't she? No. The answer came instantly. Not even remotely. I blinked. Tau pointed at me. You. His finger remained there. You were always my type. I laughed nervously. He didn't. You. His eyes traveled over me, filled with affection, wonder, love. The sort of look I had spent years wishing for. I'm not as slender as the women you've dated, and I know it. Tau snorted. I know. I am not slender. I know. I certainly don't look like Lilith. Thank the moon. I blinked. Tau shook his head, then looked directly into my eyes. Scribbles. This time the nickname sounded different. Softer. Reverent. Almost. You are exactly my type. I stopped breathing. Tau continued. I love your curves. My face heated instantly. I love your laugh. Another heartbeat. I love your dimples. Another. I love those ridiculous laughing eyes. My vision blurred. They weren't funny like you. They didn't understand me like you. They didn't challenge me like you. His voice softened. They weren't home. The tears finally escaped. Tau brushed them away. And every woman I ever dated, he shrugged. A distraction. The confession stunned me. Tau shook his head. I spent years trying to convince myself I wanted something else. His smile became self-deprecating. The problem was that every woman eventually got compared to you. My breath caught. I loved you long before I understood what I was feeling. My entire world seemed to stop. Tau's smile softened. I loved being married to you. The confession hit even harder. I stared at him, speechless. He smiled sadly. I just did a terrible job showing it. The humor vanished from his face. The pack was falling apart. Grandfather woke up. Julian appeared. The council became a battlefield. His gaze dropped briefly. I kept thinking you understood. My chest tightened. Tau continued quietly. And when you pulled away, I thought you needed space. The sadness in his voice surprised me. I didn't understand what was happening. I didn't understand you were hurting. I remembered all the lonely dinners, the silence, the distance, the endless nights lying beside a man who felt miles away. You shut me out, I know. Ab. His voice was raw. You stopped talking to me. I know. You stopped letting me help. Pain flashed across his face. I know. Each answer sounded like it cost him something, not because he had known then, but because he understood now. You were trying to protect me, I whispered. Tau's jaw tightened. Yes, and you hurt me instead. His eyes closed briefly. Yes. The apology in that one word nearly undid me. Silence settled between us. Then Tau reached for my hand, carefully, as though he still wasn't entirely certain I would take it. This time I did. His relief was immediate, visible, real. Then he asked quietly, "So where does that leave us?" I broke, completely. Months of fear, months of insecurity, months of heartbreak, gone. I threw my arms around him and cried, this time from relief. When I finally managed to speak, the words came out between tears. "I love you." Tau froze, then closed his eyes. For one brief second, he simply stood there, absorbing them. When he looked at me again, his entire face had changed. The happiest smile I had ever seen spread across his features. The man looked victorious. "I love you too." His voice sounded almost reverent, as though he had waited years to say it. Maybe he had. Then he laughed softly. "You know," I narrowed my eyes. "What?" "You proposing to me remains one of the greatest moments of my life." I smacked his shoulder. He laughed harder. I was terrified. "You should have been. You climbed through my window. You were taking too long. You terrified me." "Good." The laughter came easily after that. Memories followed. Stories, arguments, old adventures. The years we had shared. The years we had nearly lost. By the time the sun disappeared beyond the hills, there was nothing hidden between us anymore. No secrets, no doubts, no fear, only us. And, for the first time since our wedding day, I felt certain that, whatever waited for us in Mooncrawl, we would face it together. We did not return to Mooncrawl immediately. Tau wanted to. I knew he did. I saw it in the way his eyes drifted east whenever he thought nobody was looking. I saw it in the restless energy that sometimes settled over him. The unanswered questions bothered him.
And so, for a little while, Mooncrawl's wolves fall silent. A husband finds his wife again. A wife finds the man she never truly lost. A child sleeps peacefully, unaware that her future has already become the center of a war. It sounds like an ending. But some endings are only disguises. Because the truth is, Tau and Scribbles never defeated their enemies. They only escaped them. While Tau healed. While Scribbles rebuilt her broken heart. While they learned how to become a family. Others were making plans. Others were gathering power. So before we begin part 2, I want to ask you something. If you were given the chance to live quietly with the person you love, would you take it? Or would you risk everything to reclaim what was stolen from you? Would you choose peace? Or would you choose justice? Let me know in the comments. I read every theory. Every prediction. Every argument. And trust me, some of you are going to be very surprised by what happens next. Because Mooncrawl has been keeping secrets. And in part 2, those secrets finally begin to bite back. Until then, thank you for spending this journey with Tau, Scribbles, and our Dark Alpha Romance family. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and recommend this story to fellow Alpha lovers. And I'll see you when the wolves return to Mooncrawl.